early good morning to you, and welcome to our live coverage of the upcoming release of SpaceX's Dragon here on NASA TV. I'm Dan Hewitt, and you're joining our live coverage from Mission Control Houston here at the Johnson Space Center. SpaceX's Dragon sits there poised at the end of the Canadarm2 robotic arm on the International Space Station, just minutes away from being released and making the trip back through the Earth's atmosphere and on its way home. The vehicle's packed with over 5,400 pounds of cargo, both inside the pressurized capsule itself and in the cargo craft's trunk. But again, just minutes away from that release. It's scheduled to come in just a little under 25 minutes from now at about 4:11 a.m. Central, 5:11 a.m. Eastern Time. The actual release window will open up at 4:10 a.m. Central, and then it takes about a minute for the crew members to enter all the commands and for the snares to retract and for the arm to release Dragon into its free drift. So that, again, expected to come at about 4:11 a.m. Central. At the controls today, 2 Expedition 50 crew members, European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet and NASA astronaut and the current Expedition 50 commander Shane Kimbrough. The pair are going to be standing by at the robotic workstation on board the station, and they're the ones with their finger on the button today to release Dragon and send it on its way. Meanwhile, teams here in Mission Control Houston monitoring the events, they've done all the work so far to get Dragon ready to depart, actually unberthing the vehicle from the Earth-facing side of the Harmony module yesterday on Saturday. That unberthing coming around 4:30 p.m. Central Time. This just a short clip of that video. You can see Dragon at the bottom of your screen as it was backed away. The vehicle, once it was unberthed, was maneuvered in front of the International Docking Adapter, IDA number 2, where it did what the engineers called an IDA selfie. So actually maneuvering Dragon in front of the future docking port of the commercial crew vehicles, crew vehicles that will be carrying astronauts from the United States and other partner agencies launching from the United States in the future. Dragon using its thermal images and LiDAR just to help better understand the reflective environment of that IDA, basically a test to acquire some data that will be used for the future crewed Dragon during what's known as its proximity ops, those close-in operations right before actual docking. And that took about 90 minutes. And then once that was complete, ground controllers again commanded the Canadarm2, which is still holding Dragon, into its release attitude, where it has been sitting for the last several hours. And again, Dragon scheduled to be released in just a little under 22.5 minutes from now. The crew members on board will command the arm to release Dragon. It'll slowly drift away and then execute a series of 3 departure burns spaced by several minutes apart. And then once it is well on its way, it'll exit what's known as the keep-out sphere and then the approach ellipsoid. So these imaginary spheres around the station that signify different checkpoints, if you will, that are closely monitored for any approach or departure, approaching or departing spacecraft. And Dragon, the only cargo vehicle capable of returning to Earth intact, so again packed with a little over 5,400 pounds of cargo today, and it's scheduled to splash down in the Pacific, just to the west of Baja, California. It'll execute its deorbit burn. That's scheduled to come at 8:55 a.m. Central, 9:55 a.m. Eastern, splashing down just about an hour later in the Pacific. And then once Dragon's in the water, it'll be just about 48 hours until the cargo is loaded off in California, and then making its way to various scientists and engineers all around the globe, really. Again, Dragon returning about 5,400 pounds of cargo. That includes the pressurized cargo inside, so research samples and vehicle hardware, making the trip back. Also, a couple of experiments in Dragon's trunk, the unpressurized section, Dragon delivered 2 unpressurized experiment payloads to the station when it arrived. This SpaceX Dragon launching just a month ago on February 19th and then arrived on February 23rd, launching on the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. This actually launching from Launch Pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, the same pad that was used for Apollo Saturn V rockets going to the moon and, of course, throughout all of the Space Shuttle program, but SpaceX refurbishing the pad for its use, and then this was the first mission using that pad since all of the work had been completed. But it did deliver about 5,500 pounds of cargo. Again, a couple of external payloads were carried up in Dragon 1, known as SAGE. The stratospheric aerosol and gas experiment is going to be taking a look at the ozone and other trace gases in the Earth's atmosphere, helping to measure temperatures in the stratosphere and the mesosphere, and understanding these measurements, hopefully allowing leaders down here on Earth to make better policy decisions regarding the protection and preservation of Earth's atmosphere. Also delivered a payload known as STP-H5, which was basically a conglomeration of a number of different sensors that'll be on board, one of which that we highlighted in a lot of our materials was the lightning imaging sensor that's actually going to be measuring the amount and the rate and the energy of lightning as it strikes all around the world. That helping to understand improve our understanding of lightning and giving some valuable insight into weather prediction and climate change and then atmospheric chemistry and physics, and that directly leading into aircraft safety. So those are the new payloads. 3 older external payloads packed inside Dragon right now for the return trip. And they include the Opals payload, the optical payload for laser comm science, that actually testing using a laser to transmit data back down to Earth from space, using really high speeds to get that job done. And it did prove that you can use this ground optical communication from a very fast-moving spacecraft. A MISSI experiment, a Materials on International Space Station experiment, also making the trip home. This an ongoing experiment with several different iterations, usually testing different materials and how they hold up in the spaceflight environment. This one tested the radiation tolerance of a computer built from radiation-tolerant material. Radiation, a constant presence in outer space, something that we have to not only protect our crew members from, but all of the delicate electronics. So this MISSI just testing some radiation-tolerant material to try and radiation harden those computers and protect them from that harsh environment. Also, the second phase of the robotic refueling mission making the way home. That's an ongoing technology demonstration looking at ways to repair and refuel satellites, especially those not made to be repaired or refueled, and then testing those technologies in space. So that'll make the trip home a lot of different
Dragon departure monitoring, and just as a reminder, make sure all exercise is done by the time we get to the actual release.
Copy the exercise constraints. We'll go for step 1, 1.602.
And you're looking here inside the room. The Orbit 1 team here in Mission Control right now with the first shift getting in as the crew wakes up for the day. They are led by Flight Director Zeb Scoville there on the right side. Just above him in the blue shirt, NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins. You'll hear his voice. He's the one communicating with the crew at the from the Capcom position, serving as that communication link between the teams here on the ground and the crew members up in space. Again, Expedition 50 on board the station right now. 2 of those crew members, Shane Kimbrough and Thomas Pesquet, going to be releasing the vehicle today. But a good view of Dragon poised at the end of Canadarm2 right there. It will be still in daytime when it gets released.
Dragon is providing LiDAR filter data. The light is visible and the LED status matches step 1.
Houston copies.
Again, we're just about 15 minutes away from that planned release. The release window will open at 4:10 a.m. Central Time, at which point the crew can begin going through the procedures on the robotic workstation to release the vehicle. That typically takes about a minute, so the expected release time is 4:11 a.m. Central, 5:11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see Dragon slowly drift away from the space station's robotic arm before executing a series of 3 departure burns. It'll be out of the keep-out sphere around, if everything goes per the timeline, around 4:23 a.m., out of the approach ellipsoid at about 4:28 a.m., and we'll keep an eye out just where over the Earth the station is when Dragon gets released. Again, we should have some good daylight, some good connectivity, so we'll have video and get some good views of Dragon as it departs. It's been just about 27 days and 18 hours since the vehicle launched, so about a month into this mission. This is the 10th commercial resupply flight for SpaceX, delivering thousands of pounds in materials for dozens and dozens of experiments, some that were done at a breakneck pace during the month that Dragon was attached. A lot of those, or several of those research projects actually wrapping up this past week and then being packed inside Dragon for the return trip home. But then, of course, the vehicle also delivering the regular complement of crew supplies, food, water, things of that nature for the Expedition 50 crew. But its mission just about at an end and getting ready to depart. The traffic, though, isn't slowing down anytime soon for the International Space Station. Dragon departing today, and then by the end of the week, we'll be looking forward to the launch of the next orbital ATK Cygnus vehicle. That right now currently targeted for this Friday, or earlier than this Friday, with the potential for a Thursday launch, but looking at March 24th right now for Cygnus's next flight. And then it'll arrive about 4 days later, delivering well over 7,000 pounds of cargo to the Expedition 50 crew. And all of this is going to start moving at a breakneck pace. 3 spacewalks on the horizon for Expedition 50. One this upcoming Friday, and then 2 more in early April to do a variety of tasks, including getting ready for the relocation of one of the pressurized mating adapters on board the International Space Station. This pressurized mating adapter number 3 is going to get swung from the Tranquility module over to the space-facing side of the Harmony module, where it's going to sit and then be the future location of another international docking adapter when that launches on a future SpaceX Dragon mission. So a lot of vehicle traffic, a lot of spacewalks, and then Shane Kimbrough himself scheduled to come home on April 10th. So again, a lot of busy times ahead for the closing weeks of Expedition 50. But everything kicking off today with the departure of this Dragon right now. About 11 minutes and change before that expected to release. Should have a go, no-go here in the room in just a little while. But everything continuing to move forward, not tracking any issues with the vehicle or with the robotics. So everything looking to be on time so far. just about 9.5 minutes away from the expected release. Here in Mission Control, Houston, Flight Director Zeb Scoville just completed the go-no-go poll with the teams. Everybody reporting go, and so giving the word over to the SpaceX mission director, who's standing by with the teams in Hawthorne, California. They're the ones actually controlling and commanding the Dragon vehicle after this release, but everything go, continuing to get ready for that release. Again, the release window will open up in just about 8 minutes at 4:10 a.m. Central, 5:10 a.m. Eastern. And then once that release window opens, the crew gets the go. They can start executing all of the commands with the robotic arm. It takes about a minute or so for everything to process, and then Dragon will be released. And we just entered a short handover between our tracking data and relay satellites. We'll be getting that video communication back in just a minute or two. And we should have solid video and good sunlight for the actual release of Dragon, so look forward to getting some good views. The station itself right now is flying about 255 statute miles over the southern part of the Indian Ocean, and just a little north of Antarctica, actually. Going to swing up and then begin crossing over Australia right as it crosses the Terminator line, that line between nighttime and day. Again, the station traveling about 17,500 miles an hour, seeing roughly 16 sunrises and sunsets every single day. The sun scheduled to set right now at about 2:21 or 4:21 a.m. Central Time, so we should be getting a sunset just shortly after that Dragon release. But just about 7 minutes and counting, so everything continuing to move smoothly so far this morning. Dragon just about ready to say farewell. And so we're just about 5 minutes away from the opening of the release window. That window opens at 4:10 a.m. Central, 5:10 a.m. Eastern. Again, what we'll see and hear is the release window will open, the crew gets the go to release Dragon, and then they start executing commands on the robotic workstation, ultimately releasing Dragon from the end of the Canadarm2 robotic arm. Dragon will slowly drift away, and then they'll move the robotic arm back away, and then Dragon will execute 3 departure burns, moving it several hundred meters and eventually well beyond the elliptical around the International Space Station and then setting it up for several hours from now when it's able to do its deorbit burn, re-enter through the Earth's atmosphere, and then ultimately splash back down in the Pacific Ocean just to the west of Baja California, where it'll get picked up by a boat, towed back into port in California, and then all the return samples and hardware will get unloaded, be on their way back to various labs around the globe. Dragon itself will get shipped to SpaceX's facility in McGregor, Texas, and then that'll be the conclusion of the 10th commercial resupply mission for SpaceX. But a little under 4 minutes and counting from the expected release time, so we should start hearing some more chatter between the two crew members standing by at the workstation, Tomas Pesquet and Shane Kimbrough, and then Capcom down here, Mike Hopkins.
You are go for Dragon release on time. Perform steps 2 to 4 in 1.320 Dragon release.
Copy, Hopper, go for release on time. Steps 2 through 4, 1.320.
And 2 minutes away from the opening of the release window. And the release window is now open. So with the window open, we'll stand by for confirmations of the commands to the robotic arm to begin the slow release process of Dragon. Should come momentarily. Robotics officer reporting the snares are open. And with that, you can see the arm slowly backing away. Dragon released 4:11 a.m. Central Time, 5:11 a.m. Eastern, with the station about 257 statute miles over the Earth's surface just to the south of Australia. You can see Dragon slowly drifting out. Again, that release time right on time, 4:11 a.m. Central, 5:11 a.m. Eastern, exactly per the timeline. Again, Dragon gonna slowly drift out, the robotic arm retracts, and then the first departure burn should come at about 4:14. The arm now in motion, backing away from Dragon. There you can see the grapple fixture on the vehicle, which is used to grab it when it arrives, and then was grabbed by the robotic arm for the unberthing and ultimate maneuvering to this release attitude, and then released by the Canadarm2. And then there you can see it, SpaceX's Dragon slowly drifting away. Arm already about 9 feet away from Dragon. And so now with Dragon released, the arm backed away, we're standing by for that first departure burn. And there you can see depart burn 1 started.
Station on 2 for
4:13.
Dragon depart commanded.
Houston copies.
And so the first of 3 departure burns executed. Dragon slowly backing away now.
Station Houston, departure burn 1 is complete. Departure burn 2 in approximately 1 minute.
Copy, thanks Houston.
Visiting vehicle officer here in Houston reporting everything looking good with the vehicle. That first departure burn complete, as you heard Capcom Mike Hopkins radio up. And then the second one should be starting any moment now. That'll carry it several hundred meters away eventually from the station, setting up for that third and final departure burn, which will carry Dragon out of the keep out sphere and the approach ellipsoid. And the second departure burn has commenced. And already completed.
Station Houston, departure burn 2 is complete. Go for SSRMS safing. Perform step 5 in 1.320. Departure burn 3 in approximately 7 minutes. Monitor for step 3 in 1.602.
Okay, we'll monitor the third burn and we'll head to step 5 and the other procedure for safing. Thanks.
It's a good readback.
So the first 2 departure burns complete. Dragon on its way away from the International Space Station. Again, that release came right on time.
Step 5 complete.
Houston copy.
Again, the release came right on time at 4:11 a.m. Central Time, 5:11 a.m. Eastern, with the International Space Station flying just to the south of Australia. From this view, you can see on the Earth below, the station has crossed the Terminator line, heading into an orbital nighttime.
If you could pan and tilt the cameras to try and follow the vehicle, we'd appreciate it.
And you can see Dragon continuing to depart. The sun setting on Earth and on the International Space Station and Dragon as it flies away. Loaded with more than 5,400 pounds of cargo, research samples, vehicle hardware, and other items, making its way now from the station, on its way soon back through the Earth's atmosphere for a splashdown in the Pacific. And we'll keep with it until Dragon's out of the keep-out sphere and the approach ellipsoid. That should be done before 4:30, so just about 10 minutes or so. The third departure burn scheduled to kick off in about 5 minutes. That'll be the third and final departure burn. And then Dragon ultimately setting up for that deorbit. The deorbit burn on the timeline for 8:55 a.m. Central, 9:55 a.m. Eastern, setting up for a splashdown in the Pacific at about 9:54 a.m. Central. You can just make out the thin line of the Earth's atmosphere there in the lower left corner as the sun sets on planet Earth and the International Space Station. Dragon continuing to fly away. There on the right side of your screen, it's in the preparation for its third and final departure burn. That one will carry it out of the keep-out sphere and the approach ellipsoid. It should be out of the general area of the station in just about 9 minutes, so by the bottom of the hour, and be well on its way back home. The vehicle packed with over 5,400 pounds of supplies, both in the pressurized section and in the unpressurized, also known as the trunk. The release coming right on time at 4:11 a.m. Central Time, 5:11 a.m. Eastern. Expedition 50 crew members Thomas Pesquet and Shane Kimbrough at the controls, releasing Dragon from Canadarm2, the station's main robotic arm, and then the vehicle being commanded to execute these burns, and now well on its way. I'm getting confirmation the third departure burn has begun. This is the third and final one. And so once this one's completed, it should be out of the keep-out sphere momentarily, and then just a few more minutes until it's out of the approach ellipsoid, and Dragon is out of the International Space Station's neighborhood. And confirmation that third and final departure burn completed successfully.
Station Houston on 2 for Dragon. Departure burn 3 is complete. Dragon is outside the keep-out sphere.
Copy, Houston. Hey, Houston, it looks like it's time to say goodbye to Dragon. There's a part of us that will come back down to Earth with her, and I mean that literally, because it carries lots of important scientific samples and some obtained directly from the crew. I know the scientists can't wait to get their hands on these results, and thanks to return vehicles like Dragon, the ISS is able to fulfill its mission of science and discovery. From all the crew of Expedition 50, many thanks and congratulations to all the teams involved in the CRS-10 mission.
Thanks for those words, Thomas, and congratulations to the crew as well. You guys did a fantastic job, and always staying ahead of the timeline, and it's going to be great to get Dragon back on Earth.
Some congratulatory words from ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet, the crew of Expedition 50, doing a lot of work over the past couple of weeks, unloading the several thousand pounds of cargo arriving on Dragon, executing a variety of experiments that are already packed back in and on their way home now on Dragon. And so anytime these visiting vehicles come and go from the station, it generates a lot of new work for the crew members, packing in hours and hours and hours of scientific work above and beyond even the norm anytime these vehicles arrive, especially with a lot of these experiments that have basically a limited lifetime where they have to make sure they execute them on board the microgravity laboratory in enough time to pack back inside Dragon and return, but all those done successfully. Dragon released on time today, on its way back home for a splashdown in the Pacific a little bit later this morning. And we can just see the strobe and some of the lights on Dragon now outside of the approach ellipsoid and well away from the International Space Station. Again, just to recap, successful release today at 4:11 a.m. Central Time, 5:11 a.m. Eastern, while the station was flying just to the south of Australia. Dragon packed with over 5,400 pounds of cargo, both pressurized and unpressurized, making its way now towards a eventual deorbit burn at 8:55 a.m. Central.
And Station Houston on 2 for Dragon. Dragon is outside the approach ellipsoid on a safe 24-hour free drift trajectory. And Shane, you do have a go for the CCP cleanup activity.
Copy all, Hopper. Thanks again to everybody in the team for a successful Dragon mission.
Thanks, Shane.
And again, all this setting up for an eventual splashdown at 9:54 a.m. Central.
For the WSTA, still 71%.
So with that, it's back to a couple of tasks for the crew members for their Sunday before they wrap up and continue preparing for spacewalks and other visiting vehicles coming up soon for Expedition 50. But with that, that's the end of SpaceX 10 Dragon's time on the station. Soon it'll be back in the water on planet Earth. The samples will be unloaded, and Dragon's mission will come to a complete end. But with that successful release, we'll go ahead and wrap up our coverage this morning. Thanks for waking up early or staying up late with us today to say farewell to Dragon, a very successful mission now on its way back towards Earth. But with that, we will go ahead and sign off for now. This is Mission Control Houston.